How's it going, YouTube? Got FourthStarTCG here, and today I'd like to talk about a question that I get a lot, and it's also a question that I ask myself a lot. And it is, when do I sell? When do I sell, for example, some duplicates of cards that I already have in PSA 10? When do I sell, for example, some sealed product that I have lying around? Or some sealed product that I thought was way too cheap at the time and was probably going to go up in value? When does it make sense to sell these items? Because as everyone has seen over the past year, sometimes, selling can be not good, because when you sell, you lose out on the possibility of future value gains. And this is sometimes derided as, paper hands. Where people either sort of sell immediately after seeing a little bit of a value increase, or they, sell out of an item that they bought after it goes down a little bit, sort of not realizing the long-term potential of that item. So the question always is, when is the best time to sell? So the answer to this question varies a lot based off of your personal situation, your level of monetary investment, or your level of monetary liability into your certain items, and also just generally what you want to get out of your items and what your end goals are. So the answer to these questions are going to be different for everyone, and there isn't one specific, this is when I should sell. But I've been in Pokemon for, 7 years plus. I've made great sales. I've made sales that I regret. I've sold at times where, given, the same information again, I would have made the same decision to sell the same cards. But looking back, it wasn't the best financial decision. So I'm going to give you my philosophy on when to sell. And again, my philosophy isn't the end-all be-all for when to sell your Pokemon cards, and everyone is different. But, that being said, I'm going to give you what 7 years experience plus in the Pokemon card hobby, seriously into the pie, many more years as a sort of child collecting. But 7 years of serious Pokemon experience has taught me. So the first thing that I want to emphasize is that there are levels to selling. So there is, and I sort of place this in a hierarchy. On the lowest of the hierarchy, the worst decision, I have, selling for the sake of selling. This is just, for example, saying, oh, I got some extra cards back in my PSA return, I guess I'll just sell them. Not having a set goal that you're going to put that money towards, just saying, yeah, it would be nice to have some extra money lying around. That is what I think is the worst thing to do, because, what you're doing is you're trading your solid, your flat or appreciating assets for cash, which is a stable asset. And especially in Pokemon cards, what we saw, especially long term, most Pokemon cards, they do slowly go up in value. Within there, as I've mentioned in a lot of my videos, there are a lot of ups and downs. So, this short-term investing idea and buying sort of the next big thing, not really going to work out. But overall, if you're looking long-term, selling without any idea of where that money's going to go is what I think is the worst decision. So you don't want to sell for the sake of selling. You don't just want to say, oh, I bought some Shiny Star V for $50 a box on release, and now it's $100. Guess I'll just sell that because I'll make some money. Selling for the sake of selling for just the purpose of making a little bit of money. For someone in my position where I'm not a Pokemon business, I'm just a collector, I think this is a bad decision. So next up on the hierarchy for, solid selling decisions is never selling. I think never selling is better than sort of selling without a strategy. And the point of never selling is that generally you're going to keep that value. And overall, some of your cards might go down in value, some of your cards might go up in value, but if you're buying correctly, if you're grading the right items, if you have a general idea of what you're doing, hopefully your collection value will appreciate somewhat over time. And by never selling, by sort of diamond hands, you make it so that you can really capitalize on those end goals, right? So, for example, throughout the last year, I was in never sell mode. I just, based on the market, based on everything, I was like, you know what, not really going to sell into this. I want things to settle. I want to see exactly where everything ends up. I don't really want to touch the market in this current state. So I didn't sell anything over the past year, and I think that was a great decision, because at the sort of beginning of 2020, I did make some sales just sort of for the sake of selling. I was like, hey, I have these CP6 Charizards, they're worth $100 each. I thought that's a great price, I'll sell them off. And I put that money back into Pokemon, but there wasn't a set goal of, okay, I'm putting these Charizards into something else. It was like, oh, I guess I'll have some extra money and I'll spend that on Pokemon. Obviously, those CP6 Charizards went way up, and my sort of selling for the sake of selling would be better served by never selling. So that's sort of the second level of my selling hierarchy. Never selling is better than selling with no clear idea of what to do with the money. And at the top of the selling hierarchy, the best, and this is what I'm going to spend the most amount of time here on, is what I call strategic selling. So strategic selling is when you have all this stuff in mind, when you understand the market dynamics, you understand the risks of selling, and you are selling with the intention of reinvesting that money back into Pokemon, or of doing something that makes a significant and appreciable difference in your lifestyle with that money. So for example, things I think of when I think of strategic selling is selling off a bunch of cards to move them into a different card. So for example, if I wanted to buy a several $1,000 PSA 10 EX card or something, the way I would fund that right now is by selling other cards, right? So if I look at my cards and I say, you know what, I'd rather basically trade, these 10 PSA 9 cards that I already have in PSA 10, or, this card that I don't really have a big attachment to, I'd rather trade that in exchange for this other card. That's what I think is good. Strategic selling is to sort of repurpose your collection and allocate your money in different ways so that it's doing the best for you, so you're most satisfied with your collection, you're most satisfied with the cards you have, or if you're investing in Pokemon, you're putting your money into what you think is the best asset. So that's one aspect of it. So for example, let's say I have, I think I have 19 sealed Shiny Star V boxes. They're about $120 now. I don't think I would sell them at the current prices, but for example, if something like a PSA 10 lottery Rayquaza Full Art came up and I needed money to sell that, and I thought, okay, would I rather have my Shiny Star V sealed booster boxes or the lottery Ray? I'd do that calculation. I'd say, okay, chances are I probably want the lottery Ray more, and then I'd sell off my Shiny Star V boxes to fund that purchase. And then sort of in the future, I can look back and I can say, okay, well, I didn't sell those Shiny Star V boxes just for the sake of selling or for having some more money. I moved them into something else. I used that money in a different way. And I think this helps a lot when people sort of look back and, possibly look at significant increases in values of cards that they sold. Just remember those CP6 Charizards I sold at the beginning of 2020. What if I had taken that $400 that I made from selling my 4 CP6 PSA 10 Charizard holos and put that into something like a PSA 10 EX card that was selling for $400 at the time. I think like I actually did this. I don't think it was with that exact same money. I think it was like with money I earned. But like I bought a Mew EX, a PSA 10 Mew EX from what's it, Legend Maker, I think, and I think that was about $400. So using that comparison, I could then say, okay, which one would I want more? And I can do that and say, okay, you know what, I wanted the Mew EX more than the Charizard, so therefore that sale makes sense. And you can compare the sort of value increases between the things you bought as well. Sometimes you might do well, sometimes you might do wrong, but at least you have that comparison. So continuing here with the idea of strategic selling, I want to emphasize that selling to make an appreciable difference in your quality of life. I think this is something that, you know, people kind of miss out on every now and then. But there are people who have such substantial collections that they can sell off they can sell off part of their collection, or they can sell off their whole collection, and do something like buy a house, do something like, you know, pay off their student debt. Things like that, where they make an appreciable and immediate difference in your quality of life. I think that's a very justified way of selling. Obviously, like, you still want to have the financial considerations there. So like selling off a bunch of your cards to buy something like a car, where that's a depreciating asset. If like you're buying a new car with selling your Pokemon cards, I don't think that's a good idea. But you know, if you need a car to, you know, get to work or do something like that, and you know, the thing you have, you don't want to go into debt for it, or maybe you can't get qualified for a credit or something, but you've got your Pokemon cards and you want to sell those to make that appreciable difference in your quality of life. I think that's sort of something that gets missed a lot. And people have done this really successfully, and I think that is a very important reason for selling cards that people should be aware of. So that being all said, I want to, you know, again, this doesn't work for everyone. If you're like a Pokemon business, you have to keep money rolling in, and selling is the way that you do that. And you kind of have to be comfortable with the fact that you're going to, you know, lose out on money every now and then. So obviously for like businesses, this is not really going to work, but this is what I think is the best way to go for, you know, your average collector who doesn't live off of Pokemon. The last thing I want to say is that whenever you sell, the most important thing that you have to be able to keep in mind is the fact that you may never obtain the item that you're selling again. And this is a lesson that I've sort of learned the hard way throughout my 7 years. You know, there have been crazy cards that I've sold off. You know, I once had a PSA 10 Milotic EX from EX Emerald, and I sold that off because at the time I didn't think I would go after English EX. So I said, you know what, I'm going to sell this card. Obviously now that card has gone up massively, and I am collecting English EX, so I regret selling that card. I regret selling more of my English EX collection in 10s that I just sort of sold off at the time, because I thought, okay, well, I'm not really going to go into this part of my collection. I'm going to focus on Japanese. And again, I regret those because I didn't really consider the possibility that I would never be able to get that card again. And I think everyone needs to really consider this when they sell, is that possibility that it might never come back. I think especially a lot of the people that are kind of like trying to day trade Pokemon cards, where it's like, oh, well, you know, this seems to be at a peak, I'll sell that and, you know, buy it down the road when it, you know, goes down in value. I think something like that is really something to be avoided. Never sell anything that you aren't totally comfortable with never having in your collection again. So this is why recently I've started selling, you know, some of my duplicate cards. I think the market's in a more settled place where I'm more comfortable selling. And also these items I'm comfortable with saying, you know what, I'm not, you know, I have duplicates of them. I have higher grades of these cards. I'm not worried about, you know, the possibility of FOMO, of missing out on having these cards in my collection. So that is my philosophy on selling. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe and stick around for more videos.